Hey guys, welcome back to my channel Suno Kahani, where we were reading Rishtas and the Red Flags. So, 12 chapter तक हमने कंप्लीट कर लिया है. So you can go and listen and watch whatever you want. और उसके अलावा भी मैंने बहुत सारी बुक्स अपलोड कर रखी है उसकी वीडियोस, तो you can listen them as well. So let's start. I had been on location duty since Monday, which meant I would have the supreme pleasure of spending my days and a quarter of my nights in the Sadika Ghar, or should I say Sadika 5-star hotel. For the first 2 days, I somewhat enjoyed being away from the monotony of my office desk. But 48 hours, 5 soup bites, and countless awaited cries later, I would have sacrificed my promotion to go back to the safety of my cubicles. The first event of the 4 day celebration, the Sangeet, was to take place tomorrow evening. While most of guests were supposed to check in sometime in the morning, a few over eager ones were arriving tonight. Among them were Deepti's elder sister and her husband, whose editorial interview I would have found out of minutes ago was scheduled for midnight. The woman had refused to do it at a more civilized time during the day, saying haughtily, "It's my real sister Sangeet. I am not going to have any time once the celebration began. Today was the only day I could have gone back home for a good night's sleep before the madness officially began. But I knew the editorial team would want me around for the interview. They needed someone to manage the tantrums. I pulled out my phone from the pocket of my jeans and texted my mom. Late night today as well, don't make dinner for me. She would be worried. I had not spent more than a few hours every night at home for the last 2 weeks. At first, I had been busy decorating the boutique, and then with the preparation for best man. My dad and she had tried to lecture me a few times, warning me about how I was pushing myself too far. I had told them the same thing I had been telling myself over the last few days. I'm absolutely fine. I know what I'm doing. I didn't know. I didn't. Working on wedding, I would be realized was the same as running around like a fashionable headless chicken. You had no idea where you were going or what was going to hit you midway, but you have to have your simmer on. Is it your wedding or theirs? My mom had asked me when she would found me reading her wardrobe for saris. Now, dressed in a short printed kurta I had borrowed from her, I was making my way to the third floor studio room that we would be converted into our meeting place. The twin beds had been pushed aside to make room for the center table, and the blankets had been tucked away in the wardrobe. This was a place for business. The newest intern, Bhargav, opened the door when I rang the bell. All four members of the social media team were present. To my pleasant surprise, I had been chasing them for the past week, and I was glad my passive aggressive emails had yelled something now, it's if not sooner. Good to see you guys, I greeted them, pulling the office chair from the desk near the flat screen television. How it's going? All set? Asked Janelle, the social media manager. I let out a low whistle. Far from it. Really? How can we help? She asked, her voice sympathetic. The others in the room, Bhargav, the intern, and the two other young men I had seen around the office but had never interacted with before, were all new additions to the team. Up until a few months ago, Jinal used to handle TMJ's entire social media presence on her own with the help of an ever changing intern. But with our continuous growth in the digital space, it had become impossible for her one woman army to win any battles, let alone wars. It would be great if you could get started on the pre event deliverable ASAP, I said, then added after a moment, like yesterday. Gina laughed and said, "Your timelines are always crazy." I ran the team through the list of deliverables for the different sponsors. The most important one being the hotel Lotus Royal was not only providing us with the venue for the various functions for the wedding, but they were also offering the family a hefty discount on all the rooms booked for the guest. Apart from that, they would be given us 5 free rooms for TMJs team from tomorrow until Sunday. We could have asked for a sweeter deal. Are we sticking to the template food building, exterior, and decoration shots, or should we have some fun with it? Gina asked. You can get creative with the content, but only after you have enough safe material. You know how these sponsors are, they don't want to take risk, I explained. I gave the four of them some time to go through the list and articulate their doubts. They claimed to not have any, which of course meant I had to get frantic phone calls at the last minute. Let's reconvey before the wedding day to discuss the remaining deliverables, I said, standing up. I glanced at my phone as I walked out into the long, brightly lit corridor. It was almost 4:30 p.m. and I finally had some time to grab lunch. In the elevator, I pressed the button for the lower ground floor where the hotel's coffee shop was. It stopped on the first floor and in walked Preet, our in-house stylist. Oh my god, babe. Thank goodness I ran into you, he said, gripping me by the shoulders. He was dressed in a embroidered black and silver blazer, tight back trousers, and silver pointed toe derby shoes. Oh, what's up? My intern, that idiot. He completely forgot to pick up some of the pieces of Dipti's cover suit, he said. I was not sure if he was angry or alarmingly alarmingly anxious. But isn't the suit the day after tomorrow? I asked as the elevator door opened on the floor and we stepped out. Yes, smile. Yes, love. But the bride needs to try them on today so we can send the clothes back for alterations. The words continued to tumble out of him. Well, sit, send someone. I offered, fully aware of where this conversation was heading. I totally would love. But no one's here and it's already really expensive stuff, so I can just send a rando, he said, and I waited for him to file his request. Could you run out and grab it up for me? Why can't you go? I was ready with my response. Unfortunately, so was he. I wish I could, but Dipti's bridesmaids are waiting for me in their room. I have to style them for their appearance tomorrow. I opened my mouth and then shut it. Please, I would not ask if it was not an emergency. The store will shut in an hour, he said, hopping on his heels to channel his nervous energy. I looked longingly at the coffee shop in front of me, my stomach silently rumbling. Besides, if it were not for you, we would not have had to do this cover suit at all. His tone was still friendly, but he was done pleading. Damn, I had not thought he would go there. I had been able to go back on my promise of digital cover suit for Deepti and hers, even though my boss had all but threatened to fire me if I did not somehow manage to scrap it. In the end, she had given me, seeing as the couple were in a no mood to back in town. Down. All right, I resigned and said, but you are booking me a cab. I am sick of explaining my cab fares to the counts team. Preet clapped his hands together, his mouth wide open in gratitude. Thank you so much. I truly owe you one, he said. He walked me to the elevator as if trying to send me on my way before I could change my mind. Once I was inside, he tossed me a set of car keys. Forgot the cab, just take my car, he said. The keys hit my chest and fell to the ground. I bent down to pick them up, saying I'm not the best driver. I wanted to say, but the elevator doors had already closed. Actually, that's not the truth. I am a textbook good driver. I always drive in the right lane. My speedometer never reads anything over 50 km per hour, and I don't overtake from the wrong side. In fact, I never overtake at all. I am conscious, I follow all the rules, and I don't even hurl abuse at other drivers on the road. The problem arises at the end of the drive when I need to park my vehicle. When I got my driver's license a few years ago, my dad tried to teach me how to park in new space. He would take me to crowded markets, unknown office buildings, and malls for practices, and for the most part, I did just fine. But that was mostly because he would tell me exactly what to do. Start steering. To your right. Now go forward and straighten up the car. Okay, now reverse. It turns out that when someone is not doing all the physics and calculations for me, my brain just not can't figure out what to do. And after finding myself in one too many stressful parking situations, I decided to call off the whole thing. Ever since, I had been taking lifts from the dad and we whenever I could manage it, and traveling in cabs when I was not completely broke. So, was driving a random colleague's Honda City halfway across the city a good idea? No, it certainly was not. Why did I do it then? Maybe he deserved to have his car bumped for coercing unnecessary favors from gullible, overworked colleagues. When I entered Khan Market, it was buzzing with commotion. I drove around the exterior hoping to find an easy parking spot, but as the luck would have it, the lot was going completely full. The only empty spot I found was between two angled SUVs. I knew parking here required a certain amount of expertise, and even then, it would be tight squeeze, and yet I decided to go for it. What option did I have? The store was going to close in 15 minutes. I had come all the way. It would be silly to go back empty handed. I took a deep breath, put the car in first gear, and went for it. Within the first 2 seconds, I knew that the angle was all wrong. The passenger side of Honda City would be definitely bumped against the SUV on my left. So I reversed the car and tried to undo the damage. Expect Except there were two cars waiting behind me and they began honking angrily as I tried to encroach onto their road space. I tried to go forward to let them pass, but somehow I had even less space to proceed than before. I was stuck. At first, I waited for a parking assistant to help me out. When nobody magically appeared at my side, I honked my own car a few times. Nothing second turned into minutes. As I sat there blocking the traffic and panicking wildly, the driver in the Range Rover behind me was shooting daggers at me through the rear view mirror. A line of other driver was waving and screaming at me to get moving, and all I could do was sit there, hyperventilate, and pray that the ground would swallow me whole. Hey, someone had walked up to the driver's seat. My first thought was that one of the angry drivers had come to harass me up close. But when my eyes focused on the man at my window, I realized I knew him. It was Karan, my OG Chauhan match. I rolled down the window and said two desperate words, "Help me." He motioned for me to get out of the car, and I jumped at the chance of being rescued. He got in, reversed the car, did some sharp maneuvering, and less than 30 seconds later, the Honda City was snuggling parked in its spot. The drivers who passed by gave me a dirty look, and one had a particularly annoying expression on his face when he took me in. Like the past 5 minutes suddenly made sense to him because he would have found a woman drive at the end of it all. Here you go, Karan said as he shut the door behind me. I took the keys from him, feeling a rush of gratitude. Thank you, no problem. It was a tricky spot, he said, shoving his hands into his Nike joggers. What are you doing here, though? I got a work thing, you know. We crossed the road and began walking towards the row of shops. Khan Market had always intimidated me. When I was in school, a bunch of my classmates used to celebrate their birthdays in the expensive restaurants here. Back then, no matter how much money I spent on their birthday gifts or my own outfit, I felt out of my place and judged. These narrow lanes frequented by foreigners and the creme de la creme of Delhi's elite represented a world I could never quite feel at home in. I'm a meeting a friend for drinks in a bit, Karan said. Oh, nice. I wondered if it wasn't date, but guessing by the way he was dressed, I doubted. Is my brother going to be joining you? He asked. No, why would be he here? You two are working together now, are not you? Besides, from what I hear, you guys do hang out a fair bunch, he said with a mock sincerity. I ignored his sarcasm and responded, no, I am just here to pick up some clothes, so if you will excuse me. I halted at one of the lanes that led me to the inner market where the store was located. Oh, I don't mind walking you. I have got some time, he said, motioning for me to lead the way. So, what's been up? I asked after a few beats of silence. Oh, this and that, nothing as exciting as looking for a life partner to do win a bet, he said, his tone casual. Okay, so Adar had told his brother about the bet. Any doubts I had about their closeness immediately evaporated. To be fair, I am not looking for a life partner, just a boyfriend, I said, allowing myself a small smile. Yes, my brother does seem to have the stiffer, and he trailed off as a group of young girls, his suddenness and short shorts crossed us, eyeing him flirtatiously. I stopped walking and turned to face him. I was not in the mood to take shift from the someone who enjoyed the attention of teenagers, even if he had just saved me from distressing situation. I am not forcing this on him, I said. Oh, don't get me wrong. I am not blaming you. I actually love this whole thing, he said, taking his hands out of his pocket. When I just looked at him in confusion, he went on. Apart from the constant entertainment it offers me, the strange relationship that the two of you share is perhaps the first bond he's made with anyone in a long time. What do you mean? It's a long story. I didn't want to get you late for your work thing, he said. I knew what he was doing. He wanted to see if I would take the bait, and unfortunately, I was too curious to say no. I really do have to hit that store like right now, I said, pointing to the designer boutique across from us. But we can grab a quick coffee after that if you are free. Sound like a plan. Meet you at Starbucks in 15, he asked, and I nodded. And that's how a half hour later I found myself sitting across the table from my former Tinder match, Akka, the brother of my former arranged marriage match. It was weird to say the least. On the whole, Karan was still an insanely attractive man, but I could not detach my focus from his individual features. His eyes, for example, were dark, way darker than his brother's scotch flavored ones. His jawline was sharper, making him seem less approachable. His hair was straight and smooth, like his brother's Adar. I knew from the time his family had come to see me, had taken after his mother in this regard. My brother, how do I put in? Karan said with a pause. He uh, has a hard time making friends. He is a quite disagreeable. I could not stop myself from saying. Karan let out a soft laugh before taking another sip from his cappuccino. It's kind of a recent development, he said. Oh, between the two of us, he was always the charmer. Karan leaned back, looking into the distance in a way that indicated he would let himself slip into the past. I sipped my own coffee, waiting for him to continue. In school, in college, he was always front and center. Teachers loved him. Strangers, friends, relatives, my parents, everyone adored the shit out of him. And the girls, don't even get me started, he said with a chuckle. I used to be so jealous of my older brother. He shook his head, a glum smile playing on his lips. I never thought he would need any help in that apartment, let alone for my parents. What happened? I asked, placing my mug down on the table. He got his heart broken, he said. Oh, I said. Then added a low tone. Happens to the best of us. Yep. He said, then abruptly added, except she died. It took me a few seconds to register that he had just said. My mind began to race as I took it in, trying to piece the information together with the image of the man I had known for the couple of months. I thought back to the photo I would found on his Instagram of a beautiful girl with no caption. Was that his ex? And had that been before or after? When I did not say anything out loud, Karan continued. Road accident 4 years ago. It was truly, truly terrible. I'm sorry, I managed. Yeah, we all were. It was heartbreaking to watch him. He stopped hanging out with his friends, their friends. Stopped going out, stopped being his chatty, charming self. He would just work and sleep. In the apartment the two of them had shared, he said. He took a deep breath, then continued. At first, we gave him space, but when a whole year had passed, I could not take it anymore. I convinced him to move in with me. That's how we got our flat together. I thought back to the apartment. I had spent a night in a after Saurav's party, Karan's room with the cartoon figurines, the living room with the Swedish blue sofa set, the washroom with a fresh supply of toilet paper, and Adar's room that I had never gotten to see. I tried to set him up with some girls I knew, but he was genuinely not interested, not in girls, not in friends, not in anyone. Until I offered trying to match this mental image of Adar with the one I would come to form. To me, he had never seemed like a man who was running away from the love. He was probably the only guy I knew was so eager for it that he wanted to get married and start a whole new life with a stranger. Until my parents brought up the topic of Sadi one day, he said, sigling, I'm sure they had not expected it, but he said yes instantly. But why? I asked, even though I had begun to form my own suspicious. I guess he was tired of being lonely this way. He could start a family, have wife, a few kids without ever risking his heart again. Chapter 14, Touch and Go. I don't understand why women are insecure about small boobs. They are really quite a blessing. Think about it. They never attract disapproving glance from aunties cleavage who they go well with the every outfit and no one notice if you ditch your bra. I, for one, considered myself lucky. Take today for example. Instead of buying a suitable, overly expensive bra for the deep embroidered blouse I was wearing with my pastel pink lehenga, I had simply decided to let my breasts be. It was economical, liberating, and fantastically convenient. The preparation for Hers and Ditya's Sangeet were in full swing, which meant I had spent yet another night not sleeping and yet another day not eating. I was amazed at my ability to get all dolled up, walk around in heels, and pretend like I had everything together. I was operating on the fear of missing out on a promotion and well gallons of extra strong coffee. Pooja was on the ground with me today, which was both a blessing and a curse. On the one hand, I was grateful for her discerning eye. On the other, I was terrified of her because of it. With her present, there was no room for any kind of bullshitting. She would notice right away that the flower bouquet on every table were thinner than they were supposed to be. I had underestimated the requirement of daisies and had to ask the floaties to break the arrangements into thinner bunches to cover all the tables. I half expected my boss to call me out of my lack of judgment, but she simply nodded and moved on. Throughout the day, she accompanied me to every major and minor meeting. She watched silently as I approved the content sought by social media without offering her own opinion. She let me handle the fit that the groom threw when he found out that he would only have one costume change for the cover suit and he would previously expected a dozen. You are seeing I wear the same clothes in the all photos, he had said, placing a hand on his hip. No, you will spot two wedding outfits. One will be grand and luxurious, and the other a bit understated. Understated, I had explained. His penthouse suite had been empty, save for the three of us. He was wearing a white kurta and Nike shorts and looked extra comical as he placed the ridiculously ridiculously large living room. Seriously, dude, that's not a cover suit. That's not even a regular photo shoot, he said. I was conscious of Pooja's eyes on me. If I would turn to face her, I knew I would have seen a bold "I told you so" plastered on her forehead. I would let this man think he ran the show. And now he was taking me for a ride. He did not know how much pleading and convincing I had to do to get him in this digital cover at all. Look, Hers, I said after a minute. We have thrown in this cover as a gesture of goodwill. If you don't want it, I can scrap it altogether. He stopped pacing and turned to look at me. I could tell he wanted to cuss at me, perhaps even fling the coffee mug he was holding for effect behind the glamour, fame, and wealth. Hers Khanna I had come to know was nothing but a man child. He was accumulated to getting his way, and on the rare occasion that he did not, spirited tantrum always did the trick. So far, I would let him win, but not today. Not with my boss watching. We need to go. We need to get going, I said when he just continued to gawk at me. You let me know what you want to do about the cover by tonight. Fine, he said as we approached the door. Two outfits are fine. I did a mental victory dance as we left his suite. When I turned to Pooja to share the moment, her face was blank. She was looking straight ahead, unbothered. My heart fell a little, and I wondered if I had done something wrong. But as the day flew by, I began to understand the reason for her silent observation. I was being evaluated. The Sangeet was scheduled to start at 7 p.m. It was 6:40 p.m. when I finally managed to escape to my room to get dressed. A half hour later, I entered the lawns where the function was set to take place, lifting the skirt of my lehenga so it would not sweep the floor. My phone buzzed in my hand. Onward, see you in 30. I had decided to invite Madhav to tonight's function between the lead up to Best Man and the boutique redecoration. I had zero time to meet him. We spoke on the phone every day, but we had not been on an actual date since I had first met him. I have never been with a girl busier than me. He had half joked, half complained last night. It was a short term thing. I had promised him. I did not know that. Of course, I had no idea what lay ahead of me at work after this event. I could get promoted handling my own team for branded events and never have a second to breathe again. Or I could get fired and have nothing better to do than sit at home and complain about how he did not have time for me, which outcome I prepared more. I didn't know. I was looking down and typing out a response when I walked straight into someone. Adar's drink flew out of his hand, soaking my chest with what smelled like a single malt. The whiskey glass fell on the ground, shattering into pieces. My phone dropped in next to it. Fucking hell, I exclaimed as I bent down to pick up my phone. Droplets of whiskey were covering its screen, and I cursed some more as I wiped it on my skirt. Shit. Sorry, Adar said, helping me straighten up. Watch where you are going, old man. I brushed his hand away from my elbow and opened my clutch to find some tissues. His eyes widened as he took me in, and without so much as a warning, he pulled me into him. The air left my lungs as my face hit his chest, with his arms wrapped around me. For a second, I was too stunned to do anything. I could only acknowledge the warmth of his body in contrast with the cold whiskey that was splashed all over my torso, feel the tips of his fingers brushing uncertainly against my naked waist, and smell the clunk on his suit, mixed as it was the woody notes of his drink. And then it struck me that I was glued to a client in the middle of work, even in plain sight. I pushed him away with all the force I could muster. What the hell? I screamed, the blood rushing to my face. What do you think you are doing? My eyes flitted around nervously. What if Pooja had seen us? What kind of conclusions would she jump to? But nobody of note seemed to be in the lawns, save for a few waiters at the bar who made no effort to hide that they were watching us. You are. Mm. Adar cleared his throat and stepped in front of me, blocking my view of the waiter and theirs of me. You are on display. He raised his eyebrows and pointed his gaze at my chest before quickly looking away. I guessed as I glanced down at my beautifully embroidered pink blouse, which was now almost transparent. The drink had sipped through the fabric and was sticking dangerously close to my boobs, and without a bra to act as an added barrier, the outlines of my nipples were out there for the world to see. I crossed my arms over my chest and turned on my heel, scouting for the nearest exit. The archway that led to the hotel lobby was a few minutes' walk away, and I could see some guests entering through it. Over there, Adar pointed to the partition between the tent of on our left. He placed a hand on the small of my back, guiding me outside the lawns. He kept following me as I made my way inside the hotel from the east gate. I'm sorry about your dress, he said in the corridor leading to the conference room. Just I was fuming, shut up. My face I knew was bright red. I was not sure if it was because of anger, embarrassment, or both. Instead of trying to work it out, I kept my arms tightly cover my chest and continued walking, consciously avoiding the eyes of anyone who passed me by. Detaching a dupatta, I would decided that morning would offer me more freedom to move around in the function. What incredible foresight you have, I scolded myself. Where are you going? He asked from behind me, struggling to keep up with my ghastly pace. Your room can't be down there. Here, we are not going, I said as I paused outside the conference room on the ground floor that we had converted into the fashion closet to my room. I pushed the door open, desperately praying for it to be empty. I did not have the patience to explain this to Pritna right now, or worse, to a styling intern, but the room was eerily quiet. Even the fashion team needed time to get dressed. A huge pile of clothes were covering the long conference table, and racks of clothes were scattered around the rest of the room. I bumped into a garment steamer as I tried to make my way around the table. A crumpled scarf slipped out of my pile and I threw it over my chest to free up my hands. Oh, I heard Adar saying. What is this, a flea market? Sure, if flea market sold culture, I muttered. I continued browsing through the clothes strewn looking for something to replace my soaked blouse. Are you even allowed to be here? He asked. A few garment bags with her and Deepti's name were hanging from a rack. I carefully stepped around them, making sure I did not touch anything important. I said, picking up a pink squinted blouse from the pile on the table. It was an elegant Anamika Khanna piece. It might have been a little big for me, but I should packed some safety pins in my clutch that would do the trick. Plus, it was padded. You are just going to take that? He asked again, reminding me of his presence on the other side of the room. I said grossly, well, you have left me with no choice. Then, looking up at him, I added, besides, I'll put it back long before anyone notices it's gone. And what if I rat you out? He asked, placing his hands on the chair across the table for me. I turned to clothing rack behind me and retrieved a black shirt. Why would you do that? I said, handing it to him. When you are in on the crime. The white shirt he was wearing had a wet golden patch around his abdomen. I tried not to think about how not very long ago my chest had been pressed against that very spot. He let out a low whistle as he examined the shirt. This looks expensive. Just don't spill any more drinks tonight. My phone buzzed again. I realized I had forgotten to text Madhav back amid all this madness. I'm here. Where are you? I typed out a quick response asking him to meet me at the launch in 10 minutes. When I looked up from my phone, I found myself staring at Adar's naked back. I was paralyzed as he slipped his right arm inside the crisp black shirt. The other half of his black back was still in plain view, his muscles tightening as he moved. It's so rude to stare, he said, his back still towards me. I met his eyes briefly in the reflection on the glass wall before quickly turning to my side. It's so rude to undress in public, I countered. This is quite private actually, he said before facing me to button up his shirt. My peripheral vision allowed me to glimpse of his chest. He took his own sweet time with every button, making it impossible for me to keep looking away. When I finally gave in and allowed myself to glance at him, he flashed me a grin. Well, I leave you to it," he said, gesturing to the blouse in my hand. And with that, he walked out of my room, leaving me alone, sweetly and strangely breathless. सो गाइस, हमारा यहाँ पे 2 चैप्टर खत्म होता है. मिलते हैं नेक्स्ट वीडियो में. एंड डोंट फॉरगेट टू लाइक, शेयर एंड सब्सक्राइब माई चैनल. थैंक्स फॉर वॉचिंग.